Hey everybody, it's Sophie and Marco, dish out on the movies. Today we're doing another version of A Miracle on 34th Street. It's actually the fourth version and came out in 1973. So this is all the 70s. The characters who you see are very prominent in 70s TV shows like Happy Days, for example, Mr. Bosley in Happy Days, and then he played Judge Harper, and then Rody McDowall, who plays Mr. Sawyer, and whereas I think in all the other shows that they presented A Miracle on 34th Street, this one gave a lot bigger part to Mr. Sawyer, and I think because of who played him.
Well, which is good because, Roddy McDowall, and I know that this might be controversial, but Rody McDowall in this series, if you had to go through all the actors, like out of all the versions so far, I would say he's my favorite actor out of all these actors.
Yeah, I really like Rody McDowall too. And he's perfect for the part. And
he did a great job. He was
really,
one of the best parts of the movie, actually.
Yeah. And where's the other thing? Oh, and the man who played Santa is Mr. French from Family Affair, if anybody remembers that show.
The fuck is that?
And his real name is Sebastian Cabot. And he was very well known in that time period. And because he'd been in a lot of things, and he's best known for A Family Affair. So, okay, we'll go to the movie now. This is 1973.
My overall review is, this movie is like, what if you wanted to remember the 70s and in one evening, and you watch this movie, and you'll be taken back on a time travel adventure, because like everything about this movie is 70s. Everything. It's really, really bizarre.
The clothes.
The music. Like, they have this song at the beginning.
I didn't care for that
and
at all.
It's a terrible song, but it's so 70s. It feels like that is like 1970s in a song. And then all the haircuts, the wardrobe, everything is the 70s. So if you like the 70s, you're going to love this movie.
And that's good, because I'll tell you, when we go thrifting for clothes and we see some of this vintage clothing, it's really hard to tell sometimes exactly where it comes from, the era. Well, not the era necessarily, but like exactly when in the era. And I mean, this is like a research guide to clothing worn in the 70s, so it's unbelievable. So anyway, what is different and what is the same? I guess that we could, because it's the same story, basically. And we're back to Santa lives in the Brooks Home for the Aged. And the doctor is looking for an emphysema machine, which I think in the original version, the 47 version, he wanted an X-ray machine.
Yeah, he did.
But okay, so
and
that's
another funny thing is, like, emphysema is something where I don't even know what that means.
I don't either, because usually they have oxygen.
It's one of these diseases where you hear about it in these old movies, and you never hear about it anymore. It's like, because, like, what is that? It's just something from these old movies that people mention, like, it's like, what the fuck is that? Sophie.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never heard of that. And then I thought about it, and I was thinking the original movie, it was an X-ray machine, which actually makes more sense. because I think when people have emphysema, now if anybody knows better or more detail, or if they care, they can.
It's a lung disease.
Yes, it is, and they have to have oxygen
because of cigarettes.
Right, it's due to cigarette smoking.
Oh.
You're coming off that post-World War II where everybody's got a cigarette in their mouth in every single movie.
Especially the doctors.
Everybody. And so when they talk about emphysema, that was probably, but I don't remember this. That's when I was, well, I don't want to say. But anyway, I don't remember them talking a lot about emphysema at this time, but I could see it. I could understand it because, any old movie, everybody has a cigarette in their mouth. It actually just drives me up the wall because it's so bad for you, but they didn't know.
The thing that I didn't like in this movie was the wardrobe of Mr. Gailey. Because Mr. Gailey...
Leisure suits.
Mr. Gailey was dressed like an old man, even though he was only in his 40s. And Miss Walker, she actually looked
great.
Pretty young. And, he looked like an old man because of the old man clothes that he was wearing.
And truth to tell, they had no chemistry.
No.
So
not at all.
That was another thing that drove me crazy because the daughter wants them to get married and then they live in the house.
Well, I thought something really creepy was how they introduced Mr. Gailey. The daughter writes a letter to her mother and says, I've been talking to this Mr. Gailey and I've been with him in his apartment, and I just got really creepy vibes from that.
That's the thing that's really odd. They would never happen today.
Yeah.
Well, I would hope
I
not.
went downstairs and I talked with this older man for hours, and I really like him, and I want you to be with him.
That's weird.
It wouldn't happen, and if it did, it wouldn't be a good thing usually.
It's fine in the 40s movie where they talk on an unconventional basis. They talk he's not hanging out with her in his apartment, because who knows what he's doing.
I know. I mean, it's hard not to think those things.
It's really weird. Because I know obviously he wasn't doing anything wrong, but it's just the fact that for the mother not to even know him and for her daughter to be with him for hours and hours is just asking for trouble.
Well, yeah, it's just odd. But I guess back then it really, it was just different. So like I said, he lives in the Brooks home for the ages. They have the thing at the beginning where he sees the reindeer in the window and they're in the wrong places. And then you have the drunken Santa at the parade.
Well, let's not go through the movie.
No, we won't go. And so
already done that.
One of the best things I liked, and it had to do with Rody McDowall. And, because he was Rody McDowall, we said he had an enhanced lengthier part. So he really get into the psychology and the questions and then, and the Santa would go in really into depth about, he said, I know who I am and I'm comfortable with who I am. He said that to the psychologist, and he would start questioning the psychologist about, what he, about his behavior. And so they met a few times, and then they were all having lunch, in the employee cafeteria.
Yeah, they brought Alfred back, and let me just say, Alfred in this version, he's even weirder than any of the other times. He's I don't know.
But he does a good job being Santa in the end. They show him handing out presents, and he did do a really, really good job.
And
he was weird.
Yeah, he was weird.
Very weird.
And his haircut was weird, too.
And you couldn't even really communicate with him.
No.
Which is odd, because I think if you played a Santa, you'd have to be very And they have this with all the people who played Santa in all these movies. You'd have to be very social and outgoing. And this guy was like, I don't know if he was very social with regular people.
He was like the character in a movie who, like, in like a horror movie, you'd have like the quiet character who would get killed by the killer after, you know, you kind of feel sorry for him or something. Like, he wasn't Alfred. But of course, Alfred was a serial killer, as I've established in my sequel. But they had, I thought the best scene of the movie was the scene with Mr. Sawyer and Alfred and Santa having lunch together.
Yeah.
And Santa, in this version, he does not club him over the head with his cane.
Which I welcomed. I thought that was good.
Yeah, because they can't handle that.
But they talked about it.
Yeah.
See, he says, and this was good. See, this was like the more lengthier conversation. He says, well, why do you have to have that cane all the time? You say you're so strong, because, you know, he does all these tests. He not only does mental tests, he does physical fitness-like tests with his agility and strength. And he says, if you're so agile and you're so strong, etc., why do you even need to walk with the cane? He says, because it's kind of part of myself, like it's part of his personality. So that was interesting. But then he, of course, we have a scene, because this leads to the sanity hearing, which I don't know how this jumped to that, frankly.
Yeah, because what he does is very harmless.
Yeah.
It's like something that, you know, people did like in school, kind of, like just like a harmless prank.
They have it on game shows, too.
Yeah, he takes a dessert and he smushes it into his face, like a very harmless thing to do. And, yeah.
And so here he is. After that, we're going to have a competency hearing all of a sudden. And because of course, well, no, we have the thing where he flunks all the, because he manipulates him. The psychologist manipulates Santa and says, you know, Mrs. Walker, I can't go against what she says. She's kind of like over me, and I'll get fired. And she wants you to take more tests this evening, and then you'll be back tomorrow morning. Well, so he was really Santa's really hurt by this, just like in all the other versions. And he says, oh, she has something to do with this, huh? And he fails all the tests. And so he's in Bellevue again. We have Bellevue back in the scene. And, well, of course, Mr. Gailey informs him, no, she had nothing to do with it. And so now we go to another competency hearing. Now, just one thing I found interesting about this was that was different from all the other versions, and we see this with these certain trials that have been on. This was a closed hearing. This was not a public hearing. So in all those other public hearings, you had the press in there, and you had people, and they would make, you know, whenever something...
I just think that's because this was a TV movie, and they had a TV movie budget, so maybe they couldn't afford all those extras.
Well, that could be. And so, I just thought, but this is something they do. And this is a judge. Of course, it was like this with the other ones. This was not a trial, a jury trial. This was a hearing, and this final judgment would be by the judge only. And so if that was the same, but that was interesting because usually there was all this chaos, people taking pictures.
Another thing to mention
and all that
is that
noise.
In this version, Mr. Gailey comes up with the idea to do the mail thing. And I thought that was kind of queer. You know, it's queer for Miss Walker to come up with it, and it's queer for Mr. Gailey to come up with it. It's just, it makes more sense that the post office comes up with that idea, in my opinion.
Yeah, they saw the guy who plays Mr. Gailey, he was in a lot of different shows. He is extremely tall. We've got another tall Mr. Gailey. And we see him loping up the steps of the U.S. Post Office in New York City. and they showed the logo of the U.S. Post Office, and then so here we get this thing with all the letters being delivered to the courthouse, and
He was hardly in anything, Safi.
it seems like I saw him all the time. I wonder if he's on a soap opera or something I watch. He just looks really...
What the hell is this movie?
What?
The Feminist and the Fuzz. A dedicated women's libber and a male chauvinist cop become roommates. What the hell? Whoa! Whoa! What is that, Safi?
I don't know.
What the hell is that? Barbara Eden is the feminist, and the Fuzz is Jerry Fraser. Oh, it's this guy. That is really, really weird. See, there are so many movies like this where you go to the past and you see like a movie like this or like White Mama, and they're just like, they're begging to be roasted.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so here we are at the hearing, and of course the letters prove that somebody, recognized entity, government entity, recognizes that he is he is Santa Claus. And I wanted to say, by the way, that another thing, Mr. Gimble gave the place a emphysema machine, whatever that means. And then Mr. Macy's gave all the residents of the Brookings home a free trip and lodging at Las Vegas, at a Las Vegas hotel. Now that was different and nice. And that's it. I just wanted to say that. And then, of course, now what's the wish? She wants her mother to get together with Mr. Gailey and get married and live in this house. And she has a picture. It's a house for sale, similar to the other place, and that they've shown in previous movies. And so then after the party at the Brookings place, they go to they find they get the address and they go to the place, and she runs in there and there's the cane. And that's it. It's just the same. There's a swing in the back, and it's the same thing. And then they talk about getting married, and it's so like phony. It wasn't very good. The lines were not good, and the acting was not. It was worse. They had no chemistry, and it's not like they were unlikable. They were both very likable people. They just didn't go together at all. I mean, they could be friends, but I just didn't see them as a couple at all. I mean, they just had, and then at the end, the way they talked about getting together for Susan and all that, it was unreal. It was disingenuous. I just didn't care for it. So, anyway.
I would say this version is okay.
Yeah, it's not bad. And what makes it the best is having Rody McDowall.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, well, and I would also say the Santa was good.
He's good.
Like,
Mr. French is good.
He didn't really have any issues or parts where I thought, oh, that's kind of creepy. He was pretty good all the way around.
He was very popular in that Family Affairs show, I remember. And
you would know.
No, everybody really liked him. And that was a very popular show. They sell today.
Is that why I've never heard of it?
Oh, I can't help it if you haven't heard of it. There's a doll that the little girl who passed away, she had a doll. It was called Mrs. Beasley, and it had little wire glasses and blondish hair and a certain like a dress, and she carried it all around. And today people are looking for that Mrs. Beasley doll. Yeah, it's interesting. So. Anyway, and of course I wanted to say Judge Harper, who I said Mr. Bosley played him. he was the dad in Happy Days, and that was a very popular show as well. So, and then you have Roddy McDowall, who's just been around, who's an iconic actor, and been in so many different movies and shows with so many famous actors, and Elizabeth Taylor, for example. And it was just a pleasant, show. The music, like Marco said, was terrible. And then they actually had one song in there, and I was wondering what was going to happen. I was thinking, like, is everything going to be sung? Is this going to be like a musical? Who was it? It was the little girl or Mr. French. Well, it's not Mr. French, but Santa sang a song. They were
It was
together.
Santa.
It was Santa, and it was nighttime, and they've been playing. They played chess, and so anyway, it was about dreams and imagination and all this, and it was pleasant, short. It wasn't anything lengthy or irritating. I just was wondering though, after that happened, if they were going to have more singing, and I don't know. I thought that was weird to stick that in there like that. I didn't know what that was. That supposed to be like a lullaby? I don't know, but that music at the beginning is trash. It's horrible.
And at the end.
Well, my copy was screwed up, and another movie kept trying to play, so I would hear that movie playing, and
They
so
played
I
the
missed
same
it.
song at the beginning at the end.
Oh, well, I
It's
didn't
something
miss
about
anything.
miracle.
I
It's
didn't-
like, miracle, miracle. I believe in miracle. Miracle, miracle.
No, it was a crap song.
It's like, what if Safi meets Christmas?
What?
That's what it was.
So anyway, that's it, everybody.
No, it's not. What's your
Okay.
food review?
Oh God.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Oh God. Well, I think I'll give it a coconut cream pie. I don't know what he hit his, if that was a chocolate cream. I don't think it was a chocolate cream pie. I think it was like a vanilla cream or coconut cream.
Well, which is, how would you rank the cream pies? Like,
Well, chocolate's the best, and
Oh.
then coconut cream is second best.
oh, and the vanilla cream is the worst.
I don't know. I've never had a vanilla cream pie. Just those two. Then you have all kinds of other, key lime pie,
Caramel cream pie.
and then pumpkin chiffon, which I make at Thanksgiving, which is really good.
But pumpkin chiffon isn't pumpkin cream.
No, there's nothing creamy about it. There might be some other ones that they've developed, like mint, like a pistachio or mint chocolate chip pie or something. There's all kinds of others.
So you would like mint cream pie?
No, actually, my favorite would be chocolate cream pie. But that wasn't what it was. It was probably coconut cream that Santa smushed into Mr. Sawyer's face. So, which I guess is Marco's and my favorite scene in the movie. Most
Yeah.
favorite scene.
Well, I looked up, for my review, I looked up 1970s foods because I can't give it anything that isn't 70s, because this movie is distinctly 70s. It's basically like if you were teaching a class on the 70s, you would show this movie as a part of the education because it's basically like the 70s in film form. So I would give it a piece of Black Forest cake, which they said if you grew up in the 70s, you'll definitely remember Black Forest cake.
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
You do?
Yeah, well, see.
Where?
I'll tell you something.
Your mom's house?
I was in high school in the 70s, and we had to take a class called home ec, and I don't think boys took it. I think they took shop instead. Of course, I went to a small school. And anyway,
Special school.
that's what I made. No, it wasn't a special school. It was a small school. I had 118 people in my class, graduating class. So anyway, one thing we made in home ec was pie. We made chocolate cream pie. That's how I first learned to make it. Was home ec.
Oh, so you have the recipe memorized?
No.
Oh, so
But
you're a
I
failure.
think I might have
Total
it, though,
failure.
in one of my notebooks.
Hurry up and find it.
Well, it had
But what about
it
Black
didn't have
Forest?
whipped cream. It had well, I think we have a recipe for that. My sister and my mom collected recipes.
No, but
and that
you
might
said
be
that
in
you
there.
remembered that. So I was asking where you remembered that from.
Just from eating it from other places, like
Where?
I don't know, the store or something. Nobody made it in the family.
Oh. Well, I would say this movie is Black Forest cake because although whenever I get cake, I don't rush to get Black Forest cake. It's one of those flavors where if I'm given it, I'll eat it, but I'm not really going to seek it out. But maybe I will sometime because it's good. But, you know, that's what this movie's like because obviously I would still rather watch the original, Miracle on 34th Street.
Yeah, me too.
So,
But I just appreciate the effort.
yeah, they put more effort into it, too.
Well, in these TV versions, they do put a lot of effort. They add more to the story. They kind of like, that was the thing in the first one, which I have no idea why it would be that way, but it was the very first one. But there seemed to be kind of gaps, and you would just cover it up with assumption and, like, for example, the relationship between Mr. Gailey and Mrs. Maureen O'Hara, Mrs. Walker, it wasn't really, they didn't really have any kind of previous relationship. And it wasn't really, it was just like this, only worse. They were just really basically friends who just met and didn't really know each other very well.
Yeah.
And so then you have them, you know, they're going to get married at the end of the movie when there's really no developing, they don't even show much of that, developing relationship. They don't, at least they don't show it. There's hints that there might be something, but it's not really shown.
Well, because there has to be, because that's the story.
Yeah, I know. So, in the TV one, though, that they talk more about these things. And it's just like Rody McDowall, like for his part, he was talking more about beliefs and, you know, not imagination, but delusions and, you know, all of this kind of, I'll just say psychobabble, whatever. And, but they go into more detail. It's kind of like, not completely like that one movie we saw where it wasn't edited, it was a director's cut, and the guy like talked about everything that everybody had a question about. He made sure that was left in the movie, and so it just went on way too long. These don't go on way too long. They're pretty edited to where they don't just, it doesn't, you know, you're not asleep. It just they just add a little bit more detail to give it some body.
Well, I can't wait to get through the next version because to me, like as a kid, I knew about that version and I thought there's nothing more cringeworthy than going like, oh look, we should make the 90s version because, you know, we can put Matilda in it.
Yeah, I remember seeing that too, and I just said, I'm not watching that. I'll just, and I didn't know about these other versions either. I just said, I'll just stick with the Natalie Wood.
Yeah, stick with the good one.
Yeah, because it is very classic. It's very iconic. And it's interesting too because they have access to all the Macy's, like the parades and all the balloons, and so you do get to see with each new version the newest balloons and the balloon change they go through, and I find that interesting, because those things have changed with the way the parades are done, and at least with the balloons they have, and
So,
weird. So that's it. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and become one of our subscribers. And so goodbye, everybody.
bye.